All right, Kansas Senator Roger Marshall, meanwhile, calling for a vote of no confidence against Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas on the Senate floor yesterday. Here's what he said.
My colleagues and I have outlined numerous ways Secretary Mayorkas is derelict in his duty as secretary and failed to uphold this oath. Mr. President, we're here today because we take our oath seriously and will not stand by idly while Secretary Mayorkas threatens our national security and our democracy. For the sake of America's safety and security, we need to impeach Secretary Mayorkas now and send a clear message to Joe Biden. In 300 days, we'll fire him too.
Marshall's no confidence resolution was blocked by Senate Democrats. It comes as the House Homeland Security Committee is set to hold its first impeachment hearing of Mayorkas this morning. Joining me right now is Wisconsin Senator, Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee member, and Senate Budget Committee member Ron Johnson. Senator, good to see you. Thanks very much for being here.
Morning, Maria.
Lots to talk about here in terms of Homeland Security. What are you expecting today in terms of the House efforts to impeach Mayorkas?
Well, I think that should have occurred a couple of years ago, quite honestly, so I completely support the House efforts. At the same time, here in the Senate, Senate leadership is negotiating with Secretary Mayorkas and the Biden administration. Now, the real problem we have with these Senate negotiations is the Biden administration, President Biden, his allies in the Congress here, the Democrat allies, they want an open border. They caused this problem. They are the arsonists, and we're trying to negotiate with them to try and put out the fire that they started. And, you know, Republicans want a secure border. All I think most Democrats want is political cover. They realize this is becoming an issue, that the mainstream media can't hide it much longer. They continue to, I think, undersell it. They don't report on it the way it should be reported on. But now there's a little bit of heat being put on the Biden administration, and now they're looking for political cover. And what Republicans must do in the Senate is insist on any deal that it will actually secure the border, that we will have enforcement mechanisms that would force the Biden administration, who wants an open border that caused a problem, to actually implement whatever laws that would work.
Do your colleagues in the Senate on the Democrat side not recognize this as a crisis?
They recognize it as a potential political problem. There may be one or two border state senators that recognize the real problem with it. I think Kirsten Sinema is one of them, and I appreciate her and James Lankford's efforts here. But part of the problem is, one of the things Republicans took off the table was, what we were suggesting in the conference is to tie what the Democrats want, funding for Ukraine, and make that contingent on actually securing the border, on metrics and meeting those thresholds, performance measurements like you have in business all the time.
Right.
That apparently was just taken off the table, not even discussed in the negotiations. So, okay, what other forcing mechanism are Republicans going to insist on? That's what I think is going to be a big subject at our Republican conference meeting here this afternoon.
So where does this stand now? I mean, border policy negotiations, we're told, are now at a standstill. Republicans and Democrats divided on the parole authority. Top Republican negotiator James Lankford, as you just mentioned, is expected to brief House Republicans and Senate Republican Conference on the status of the talks today. Talk to us about the parole issue. We're just over a week until a potential government shutdown, by the way, on January 19th, so there's that. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell is now pushing for another continuing resolution, he claims, to prevent the shutdown. Last year, House Speaker Mike Johnson said he was, quote, done with short-term spending bills and another continuing resolution.
Well, leaders McConnell and Schumer, of course, wanted to vote on a supplemental and a border deal before we left on Christmas. They wanted to force that vote. Republicans called for the conference and delayed that. We've been told that they're going to have legislative language, that they've had a deal. They don't have a deal. They don't have legislative language. Now we're saying it's going to be available next week. Again, the main problem is Republicans want a secure border. Democrats want political cover, and they're not able to reconcile that difference. So, Democrats are willing to agree to some things, but there's always going to be a loophole that they can, weasel out of the deal and maintain an open border. and that's what I continue to caution Republican leadership and our negotiators. We cannot accept a deal that actually doesn't secure the border.
Right.
Modest immigration reform is not going to cut it. It would be good for a future president that actually wants to secure the border, but that's not what we have right now. So we need a forcing mechanism in any deal.
So you're going to dig in on this, right? I mean, look, the deadline's coming up January 19th. I don't think at this point people are expecting a shutdown then. But what about February 2nd? Isn't that the one that includes Homeland Security and border? Are you going to dig in and go to the mat and threaten a government shutdown unless you get border change?
Well, first of all, the border provisions would be attached to a supplemental as far as I'm aware. In terms of appropriations, I think what we ought to do, this is such a mess. This has been so, screwed up. What we need to do is start turning our attention to fiscal year 2025 and have a functioning process, a budget, have that, pass a budget, have that guide and appropriation process for fiscal year 2025. We should be working on that right now. From my standpoint, a year-long CR is probably the neatest, cleanest thing to do here because we've done nothing in the Senate in terms of passing additional appropriation bills. They haven't even begun to reconcile between the House and the Senate. This is a mess. Now, I'm the guy who proposed and passed out of my committee Preventing Government Shutdown Act. Every Republican voted for that except for Rand Paul. Democrats oppose that by and large. So again, Republicans don't want to shut down the government, but it's Democrats who control the Senate, and they haven't had a functioning appropriation process, nor was the House having one under Speaker McCarthy. It's one of the reasons he lost his job. So we need a functioning budget and appropriation process. It's too late for 2024. Let's not blow all this effort on funding government through a dysfunctional process for 2024. Let's actually turn our attention, take care of that with a year-long CR, and let's turn our attention to a functioning budget and appropriation process for fiscal year 2025.
Meanwhile, issues at hand right now, we are talking about no communication whatsoever about the defense secretary. The Pentagon says that Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin was hospitalized for complications after surgery to treat prostate cancer. President Biden learned of the news yesterday that he has prostate cancer the same day as the public, but it was a month after the initial diagnosis. The White House is now launching a review of cabinet protocols for delegating authority following Austin's secret hospital stay. Fox News White House correspondent Peter Doocy grilled the administration about this yesterday. Here's how it all went down. Watch this.
What kind of commander-in-chief is President Biden that at a time when American forces are under fire in the Middle East, he can go days without knowing that his defense secretary is in a hospital bed?
At no time was the ability for the United States military to defend our national security interests compromised.
Why should we believe anything that this administration tells us about anything ever again?
The Pentagon has been very, very honest with themselves about the challenge to credibility by what has transpired here.
Yeah, credibility, Senator. Your thoughts?
Well, the world is in flames. The Biden administration has weakened this country, which is one of the reasons the world is in flames. And now we find this just outrageous breach of faith. The fact that President Biden didn't even know this. I mean, is he not talking to his defense secretary when the world is in flames and we're involved in some way, shape, or form in the war in Ukraine and Israel and supporting the efforts against the Houthis and Iran's aggression? So this is just completely unacceptable. If this were a Republican administration, this would be headline news nonstop in the mainstream media. But the mainstream media will continue to cover for the Biden administration like they are on every other issue, the 40-year high inflation, the war on fossil fuels, the open border. We've got a real problem with a biased liberal media.
I mean, in the face of all of this information that we were misled about the defense secretary, my question is, who was answering the call of our troops? While he was in the hospital, we had 8 more attacks on our troops in the Middle East from Iranian-backed Houthis. His number 2 was either on vacation or with the flu. We don't really know where she was, but who was answering the call for our troops? We've been attacked 128 times since October 17th.
Yeah, Maria, nobody knows. The administration is completely opaque. They're not transparent with Congress. Democrats have, no curiosity about all these things, and the mainstream media doesn't either. So nobody is holding the president and this administration accountable other than House Republicans are trying, but this administration, like I say, is completely opaque, lacks all transparency on a host of issues.
What a moment in time. Senator, thank you. We'll be watching all of that. Ron Johnson joining us this morning in D.C. We'll be right back.